When America's sweetheart sits down for what should have been a relaxed, friendly daytime chat, and instead everything begins to fall apart right there in front of the cameras. You get a moment nobody in the studio can forget. Today we are going through the moment when famous actress Lila Carter actually stood up and walked off of Hannah Lewis's talk show after an exchange that shocked everyone in the room. The tension, the words that were traded, the exact second everything stopped being harmless TV talk and turned into a heated argument. But before we go deep step by step, please hit subscribe and leave a comment because you are without question going to want to talk about this later. Trust me on that. So let's describe the scene. Lila Carter arrives at the Hannah Lewis show all bright and glowing, smiling, calm, ready to promote her latest film. The studio audience is buzzing with excitement even before she sits down. Hannah Lewis walks onto the set with her usual warm energy, and at first everything looks normal. The two women greet each other, they compliment each other, they talk about the weather. They even laugh for a moment about something one of Hannah's kids did earlier that morning. Standard daytime show energy. But underneath that good vibe, something feels different. Something is just slightly off. If you pay attention to body language, you feel it building. Hannah begins with a compliment about Lila's latest work, and Lila thanks her politely. Both women are very experienced, both are loved by millions, so at first all looks like a normal interview. The audience laughs when they should. They clap when the sign lights up. Everything seems smooth, until Hannah suddenly changes direction. She brings up a topic that clearly was not part of the pre-interview discussion. You see a tiny small change in Lila's eyes, a micro-expression before she controls her face again. Hannah phrases her question in a slightly different tone than usual. Hannah says, "So Lila, lately there is so much talk about honesty in Hollywood, about people showing one version publicly and being a totally different person behind closed doors. You built this whole brand of being relatable, being the friendly Southern charm woman who just happens to also be a very successful star. So how much of that is honest and how much of it is a performance?" The audience instantly goes silent. This is not the Hannah Lewis most viewers know. This question feels sharp, almost like she is pressing something personal. Lila shifts in her chair and you can see she is adjusting her mindset in real time. She answers with a good enough smile. She says, "Well, Hannah, I think all people have a public version and a private version to some degree, but I always try to be real with my supporters and the people who enjoy my work. What you see is who I am." But Hannah does not accept that simple answer. She leans forward and her expression shows she is not satisfied. She says, "But is it though? Because people who have worked with you have described someone very different. They describe someone strict, someone hard to please, someone who wants absolute perfection every time. That does not match the sweet, friendly persona we always see in interviews." Lila's smile becomes tighter. She keeps her calm, but cracks begin to show. She replies, "I think having standards and expecting excellence from the people I work with is not the same as being difficult. I work very hard. I expect the same. If that makes me demanding, then yes, I am demanding. But I don't think that is negative." The studio is now dead silent. Nobody was expecting this tone. Hannah continues, and now the softness from earlier is gone. She says, "There is a difference between having standards and creating a harmful working environment, though, don't you think? There have been stories, there have been reports, assistants, crew members. At what point does perfection turn into harm?" Lila's control begins to break. Her voice becomes a bit sharper. She says, "I find it interesting you bring this up here. Hannah, we have known each other for years and you never said anything like this before. Why now?" Hannah pulls back in her chair and thinks for a moment. Then she says, "You want to know why now? Because I am tired of pretending. I am tired of interviewing people who are not being real. I am tired of promoting fake versions of people. I am done with Hollywood pretending." The audience does not move. Everyone is frozen. Lila looks straight at Hannah and her voice becomes cold. She says, "So what? You invite me here to attack me live on your show? You think this makes you brave? You think this makes you special? That is your plan?" Hannah does not pull back. She says, "I am trying to have an actual honest conversation for maybe the first time. Aren't you tired of acting all the time? Don't you want to stop the performance?" Lila gives a small laugh, but there is zero humor in it. She says, "Honest. You want honest? Fine. Let me be honest. You are sitting here giving me a speech about authenticity when everything about your own brand is carefully shaped. You have built an entire career on being the friendly, relatable, everyday woman. But we both know you are worth millions, and you live in a protected bubble just like everyone else. The air in the studio becomes heavy. The tension in the room is thick enough to feel it. Hannah's face becomes harder. When she speaks again, her voice is steady, but you can hear the anger hiding underneath. She says, "At least I admit it. At least I do not pretend that I am outside the Hollywood machine. You have spent your entire career acting like you are different because you are from the South and because you run a book club and because you sell home items. But that is also a performance. It is just a different shape of the same game." Lila suddenly stands up and the audience gasps loudly. She is shaking a little, maybe from anger, maybe from something else. It is not clear. She says, "I do not have to sit here and be attacked. I came here to talk about my work. Not to be judged on live television by someone having a personal crisis." Hannah stands up too, and now they are looking at each other face to face across the small table between them. Hannah says, "Running away when something becomes difficult. That is very authentic of you, Lila." Lila's voice becomes very soft, almost a whisper, but the microphones catch it clearly. She says, "You do not know what you are talking about. You have no idea how hard it is to protect any small piece of privacy in this industry. Yes, I am careful. Yes, I choose what I show. That is not fake. That is survival." Hannah responds instantly. "Maybe I am tired of survival mode. Maybe I am done pretending we are all friends. We are not. We are all fighting for attention, for space, for validation. At least I am honest about it." Lila grabs her bag from beside her chair in a fast, sharp movement. She says, "Good luck with that. I hope your new honest show brings you everything you want, but do not expect me to take part." Hannah crosses her arms, and there is a small sadness in her eyes that mixes with defiance. "I never expected you to." That is exactly my point. The audience still does not know how to react. A few look uncomfortable, a few look entertained by the drama. Lila turns to leave the set. Hannah calls out, "Lila, wait!" Lila pauses but does not turn around. Her shoulders look tense. Hannah says, "This isn't personal. It isn't just about you. It is about the whole system. Don't you ever want to break free of it?" Lila turns her head a little so they see the side of her face. She says, "Freedom is not the same as destroying everything. You are about to understand that the hard way." Then she walks off stage, away from the cameras, leaving Hannah standing there alone under the bright studio lights. The camera stays on Hannah's face. You can see many emotions moving through her expression. Hannah watches Lila disappear behind the curtains. Then she takes a slow, deep breath and turns back to the audience. She walks behind her chair again but does not sit down. Instead, she stands there holding the back of the chair. She says, "Well, I guess that did not go the way people expected." A few light, uncomfortable laughs come from the audience, but mostly it is quiet and confused. Before Hannah has time to continue talking, before she tries to repair this moment or explain her goal or smooth it over, Lila comes back onto the stage. The audience gasps again. This part nobody saw coming. Lila's face is flushed and serious. She walks straight up to Hannah. "No," Lila says loudly. "We are not ending it like that. You want real conversation? Fine, but you do not get to hurt me and then pretend you are doing something noble." Hannah is surprised. She did not expect Lila to come back. She says, "I was not trying to be cruel. I am trying to be honest." Lila cuts her off. "Honest? You ambushed me. You brought up sensitive topics you knew would put me on defense. You did that in front of cameras. That is not honesty. That is a trap disguised as honesty." Hannah's hands grip the back of the chair again. She says, "It was not a trap. I asked real questions about the difference between image and truth. If that bothers you, maybe you should think about why." Lila steps even closer. Now they are less than a meter apart. She says, "You invited me here under the understanding that this was for my film. You broke the agreement. You broke the basic trust between a host and a guest. You think this is deep? This is just betrayal." The audience watches like a live tennis match. Hannah hesitates. For a second, there is something like guilt, but then she pushes it away and replaces it with defensiveness. She says, "Maybe those rules,